Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. In this video, I have a special guest named Annie Nguyen, who is our Australian virtual employee working from her Sydney home, to come and join me to chat about the topic of virtual employees. Now at Outsourcing Angel, our virtual employees come from all sorts of places, not just in the Philippines. We have several from Australia, a designer from Bulgaria, an executive assistant from Singapore, and so on. So it really is a borderless operation. Now Annie is responsible for my marketing strategies and manages our team of Filipino virtual employees, consisting of social media managers, content writer, graphic designer, and web developer. Since having Annie around, it really showed me the power of having Western virtual employees like Annie from places like Australia, working hand in hand with our Filipino virtual employees. This combination really has helped my business grow so much faster and more profitably. So I was able to fully remove myself from working in the business. So everybody, let's welcome Annie. So how are you, Annie?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No worries. It's such a privilege being able to work with you since October. Like, you've really changed my life where I'm able to remove myself. So thank you, first of all.
I should be thanking you. Like, honestly, my life has completely changed, and it was always part of the plan to make a change sometime. And you're the one that pushed me and gave me that encouragement. So.
Okay, well, let's share with the audience on your journey. Like, take us back to your, when you finished university, and how did you get into marketing and your corporate career?
Yeah, so I guess when I started my university degree, I studied a Bachelor of Business at UTS, the University of Technology Sydney. And the only reason why I did that was because I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do, and I kind of knew that business opened me up to a lot of opportunities, and eventually after my first year of studying, I thought marketing was very interesting and that was something that I wanted to pursue. So I started working in marketing, and I worked in marketing for about 10 years. Started as a marketing assistant and then made my way up to marketing management roles, and was always in the marketing field.
Yes.
But my specific interest was digital, because digital was growing, the internet was booming, and that's where everyone was moving from.
Yes.
Moving offline to having online presence.
Yes.
So I was really interested in that. And yeah, I started doing things on the side, as well as learning more about digital for my job. I was learning about digital things for my personal.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your travel blogging career as well.
Yeah, I guess that came from my love of digital. I was working as a digital marketing manager for a company, and I also love the creative side of creating social media content.
Yep.
And that's why I started creating social media content on Instagram and on my blog, just as my creative outlet and wanting to learn how to use the platform.
Yeah.
And I just consistently kept on teaching myself that and doing that every single day, and then my followers kind of grew over time, and eventually when it came time for me to take the leap of leaving my corporate job to doing something more flexible that allowed me to do the social media content for travel blogging and working online, that was when Lynn really spoke to me and was like, hey, you need to put the plan together for what you want your future plan to be, and I can help you with that because you've been working online for
almost 10 years.
Yeah, almost 10 years. And that was always something that I thought I'd love to do that, but never really knew how to get there.
Yes. So, we also met back in the days when we were both working for, it was my client. Don't have to mention the name, but I was working with a client, and I met you there, and I think before then they didn't really use virtual staff or offshore staff from Philippines much. And I came in, I sort of helped them hire their virtual staff, and you started to, we worked together with them.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a bit about your experience, working with a Filipino back in those days too?
Yeah, when we actually started working with you, that was my first experience working with offshore staff.
Yeah.
Working with people overseas as employees.
Yeah.
Because we did contract out some things through Fiverr, Freelancer, and those websites, odd jobs to offshore freelancers.
Yes.
But the quality was never that great, and sometimes people would just fall off the grid. Like you give them a task and then halfway through they disappear and you don't know what happened.
Yeah.
And then when we started working with you, you introduced us to like your main web developer, and you're like, this is John, he's been with the company since we started.
Yeah.
And he was always available and always like on time, and I could rely on him.
Yeah.
And we had a really great relationship, and we talked every day, and it felt like I had someone that was just as close. I was just as close
Yeah.
to as like an employee in the office space. And then I realized, like, why didn't we do this sooner? And that was just because we were hiring talent from unreliable sources.
Yep.
And then when I learned more about your business, I realized, wow, like the employees are very they're very loyal because you have so many different things like company benefits. You really care for your employees.
Yeah.
They have a lot of perks and workplace benefits.
Yeah.
That keeps them excited and loyal, and that's what you kind of lack when you just outsource.
Yeah, so I guess if I could describe Outsourcing Angel, it's like we are trying to make it like a real company. It's online, but it's like an offline company.
Yeah.
But because freelancers, I guess they can feel lonely sometimes, you know, I mean, most of the time, because they're working directly with the clients, and they're like, they still have that risk of, you know, their clients cancelling on them, or they don't have that company feel. So we try to bridge that and make them feel like you've got this company feel, but you get that flexibility working from home. So that's what it is. So why do you think that, like, I know you've been in a few corporate companies too, or other companies, and they don't really use offshore. Like, why do you think that's the case?
It's mainly a trust issue and like traditionalist thinking. A lot of the companies that I work for, they just have, they're just scared of like things around like privacy and quality of work, and they just didn't trust their employees who were virtual to be sitting there and getting the job done. And that's probably because people are used to like micromanagement and that kind of thing, which doesn't really make your employees efficient. Like, you want to be hiring the best talent that you know they have the self-discipline to work on things even in the comfort of their own home. Why would you want to work with someone who would only get something done if you're looking over their shoulder?
I mean, even if you did sit next to them, how do you really know they're really working, right? You just never really know.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're micromanaging someone, then you basically might as well do it yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you're spending all that time looking over someone's shoulder. But yeah, when we first started working together, I too had the same concerns. I was like, we worked with freelancers before. What if this doesn't work out? What if this person's unreliable? I'd rather just do this myself. I know what I'm doing. But then you realize when you work with someone and they're reliable, you save so much time and so much more money, and it just makes it like a no-brainer to outsource to somebody.
Yeah. So I mean, for many years, it was me project managing with the offshore team, and it's only the past 2 years that I started to hire, you know, more senior expertise, local based, like Australian people like yourself. And I've just seen such a powerful combination. Can you explain to the audience a bit more about like how is it for you now that you've got like a team of assistants who are from Philippines to help you execute your marketing work? And, you know, how does local and overseas work well together?
Yeah, it's really funny because you think that if somebody is just working overseas and you don't get to like meet them and see them in person, that maybe you guys are not on the same page.
Yeah.
But everyone has been working like with you for a while, and they know how to be really good communicators because they're virtual, and you kind of need to like know what applications to use and what kind of like project management tools to use. So everyone was very fluent with what they had on their plate and how to keep each other updated, and you just felt like you were in a reliable team. So in terms of the work that I do, the scope of the work hasn't changed so much. It's just how you communicate with your team members, and I've learned a lot with working with people who are like laptop independent, because you learn how to keep each other up to date and get things done the right way without having to be there with them in person.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you know, what people need to understand is also the resources that if you work with a Filipino is just like 1/3 of the cost. So if if I hired you but got you to do the scheduling, content writing, all these other things that could be done by an offshore team, it would have, you would have been limited. Like, you would have been so busy and yet can't do as much as you can for me right now. Whereas because you've got the backup team of the Filipinos that can do all the execution, which makes your time so much more valuable for me. You know, you're doing my strategy. If I go to you, okay, I want to get into LinkedIn, you're like coming up with a strategy for me and having your own team to help me execute. Do you agree with that too?
Yeah. And once you teach a virtual employee something, they learn a new skill and they're so excited and they love doing that, and then they want to learn more skills. And every time you pass on your knowledge to someone who is virtual, it's either through like a screen recorded video or something that you can easily share with other team members. So we all kind of grow and learn knowledge and expertise together. In the meantime, I'm still able to figure out like strategies and ways that we can keep on top of, like new marketing ideas and that kind of thing. So it works really well together.
Yes.
People just need to get their headspace out of thinking that you could only work in an office to actually get things done.
Yeah, well, tell me more about your life now that you are not working in an office. I mean, like you said, people think that you're less productive if you're working from home, or, you know, you're going to be lazy and unmotivated. Can you explain how your life is now?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time when people ask me what's like working from home, the next question is like, how do you keep yourself like motivated? But I think like when you love what you do, like you're just naturally motivated, and you don't wake up thinking like, oh, I have to do the morning commute through peak hour and like make my way to work, and you get to work, you're already kind of grumpy because you had to do that morning commute. If you've got like errands to run in the afternoon or something, you can't do that. And now it's like I can design my work schedule. So if there is an errand that needs to be done, like if a family member suddenly needs me, then I can just let my virtual staff, my virtual team know, hey, like I'm just going to be online during these hours, letting you know, and then we're all able to like design our work day. And that way, because we've got that work-life balance, you're just so grateful for your job. You wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize it. Like I'd be stupid to jeopardize what I do now and then have to go back to going through that morning commute every day and being stuck in an office and not having flexibility to do other things.
So what advice would you give to people who've never really worked with offshore team before? They might have local team and they're sort of, you know, maybe feel like, but I've already got a local team, like why would I need something offshore? Can you summarize some benefits that would they would be able to achieve by going down this route?
I guess the first thing is like you never know till you try, right? So if you've never actually outsourced before, then you don't really know the power of it. So people can take baby steps to get there. You could outsource just one task first to one virtual employee first and just test the waters. And then once you see the real power and benefit from it, that's when you can outsource more and more things. I would say to just get out of that traditional mindset of I could only work with someone if they were physically here. You'll start realizing that you could actually work with someone who's really, really reliable and really, really loyal, and they don't need to physically be in the office, and it just works. If you're scared of wasting that time, resources, and energy of like finding the right person, interviewing and hiring the right person, then that's why using like a recruitment agent, like an offshore recruitment agency like Outsourcing Angel is going to be the better solution if you're not experienced in that field. So I think trust the experts, and you never know till you try. So you can take baby steps, like one task or one job at a time. And then once you realize how much you actually save in terms of your time and your money and your resources.
I think you really need to look at your staff's hourly rate. Let's just say they're on $40, $50. And they're doing a lot of the things that an overseas person can do. And if they can do it for $10 or $15, there's that amount that you could be saving and could add to your bottom line. And it's also, you know, if you free your local staff's time to do more challenging strategy type work, they'll feel more happier rather than being repetitive doing the, you know, mundane type thing.
Yeah. And you're also saving in things in terms of like having to provide like an office space and all of those extra costs that you don't think of. So it's just, there's a long list of benefits, but until you actually experience it and do it, that's when you realize that you should have done it earlier.
Yeah. I guess the other thing to highlight is if you're hiring locally, you are limited by the pool of the people within the proximity. But when you're going virtual, it's borderless. So that means you can find just so much more better talent because they live anywhere really. And that means it's scalability. Like you don't, like you said, you don't have that office problem, space problem. You can, if you just got, you know, 100 more clients, you know, you can get 100 more staff to do the work. So I think that's it. Yeah. I guess the final note that I wanted to say is if you could think of, you know, looking at the production of your staff, not in terms of how many hours they work, but the output that they actually give out. And then I think that's the important mindset, because we don't work together next to each other, I don't know how many hours you're working, but at the end of the day, I know the output is there, the performance is there, and I'm happy with the result, you're happy with what you put in. That's the win. You know, it's not really like micromanaging the hours, and if people can get that and understand that it's not the quantity of the hours, it's the quality of the output that someone could give you is the ultimate thing.
Yeah, definitely like quality over quantity. So if you work in like a normal office as well, even the hours that they spend there, it's not all spent on working. It's like spent on like coffee catch-ups, water cooler conversations, maybe office gossiping and all these other external factors, whereas a virtual employee, they've set themselves up in an environment where they know they can be focused and get the job done and they're efficient and they're on time and they'll reply to you. So I think people just need to be more open-minded. If they've never experienced outsourcing before, then why not give it a try before you make up your mind?
Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, Annie, for answering some of the questions. It's such a privilege to have you working with me, especially we've been friends for a while as well, and it's so pleasant to work. So thank you so much, and if you have any questions for us, please feel free to comment below, and if you like this video, please share, or if you want to have a chat and explore what outsourcing is all about, we're here to help you out. So thank you and bye.